Joining our Make It Better Media Group event. I'm Susan Noyes, the founder and chief visionary officer, and we go live momentarily. But in the meantime, please let us tell you a little more about our company. Quite simply, Make It Better creates engaging lifestyle content that helps you make your life and the lives of others better. Absolutely everything we do connects you to carefully vetted resources and facilitates positive, powerful social impact. Make It Better includes Better, Marin, and Spaces magazines and the Make It Better Foundation. You can learn more about each of them here.
Make It Better Media Group creates curated content, providing a resource to live, love, work, and play with greater purpose. As a multi-platform publishing company, our three brands, Better, Spaces, and Marin Magazine, all serve similar demographics across the nation while focusing on health, education, home, finance, and travel throughout all of our monthly content. We are determined to strengthen and connect every community across the country and will never stop looking for new ways to make a difference and create a better future. Together, each of us and the rest of the world actually becomes better. In January, we celebrate a new year, new you. February, health and wellness. March, family. April, sustainable living. May, powerful women. June, getting outdoors. July, aging well. August, best of. September, education. October, wine country. November, food and philanthropy. December, giving.
The Make It Better Foundation identifies and amplifies outstanding nonprofits in Chicago, the Bay Area, and beyond. We do this in a couple of ways. Our annual competition, the Philanthropy Awards, recognizes the most effective nonprofits making a difference. And our cash grants support rewards nonprofits who foster online fundraising collaboration to grow their network of support and amplify strong storytelling to bring their mission to life. Whether you are a philanthropist, a nonprofit director, CSR executive, thought leader, board member, volunteer, please visit our website to learn how we can help your favorite nonprofit.
A video of today's event will be posted in Make It Better TV, on our YouTube channel, and included in an article summarizing the top line advice. Please also watch for it in our social networks and the Better Letter email newsletters. You can subscribe for them here. In the meantime, we hope you enjoy this event and that you join the conversation through the chat button, which will appear when we go live momentarily.
Hi and welcome, parents. My name is Jessica Hamilton, and today you are going to hear a talk entitled The Secrets to Reduce Your College Costs. Paying for college is expensive, and the cost of attendance at colleges range from $30,000 to $80,000 each year. Our speaker today is a nationally recognized college cost reduction expert. He has appeared on ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. Mr. Sipos has lectured at the Harvard Business School, West Point, Stanford, and is an international best-selling author. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, noted author, TV personality, founder of publicly traded companies, and the founder of College Cash Solutions, Mr. Gary Sipos.
All right, well, thank you. And here we go. We're going to be talking about the secrets to reduce your college costs. So, and there are many. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. Oops, I went one too far. Here we go. So hopefully you all can see a slide that says what we will discuss. And what we're going to discuss is what are college costs, who's eligible for financial aid, how to apply, how your need is calculated, and financial tools, and a whole lot more, and when to start. So let's get going. All right, so I always like to start here though, and this shows essentially where I started from, and this is my why. Why do I do what I do? And so this is little bit of a trick question. I usually ask people, what is this? And they say it's a car. And I'm like, yeah, it's a car, but actually this is where I grew up. So in Phoenix, Arizona, my dad and I lived in this car, beautiful Ford Pinto station wagon. And you can see the saguaro cactus in the background. And yeah, this is sort of like where I started out when I was a kid. And then later on, I'll go to the next slide here. You can see some pretty crazy things. And one is here I am at the NASDAQ. I had a company that I started in my living room in Silicon Valley, and it got listed on the NASDAQ. Pretty amazing and great. And here I am on television. This is Fox LA, and giving speeches at the Harvard Business School. Here's another speech I gave at West Point, and that's Buzz Aldrin next to me. I got to introduce Buzz at West Point to the cadets, and Buzz is a West Point grad. And there was that little helicopter I designed, the H-64 Apache, and you know, what a crazy life. And so how does a kid go from living in a car with his dad to doing all these, you know, crazy things? And the answer is college. And so college made a really big change in my life, and now I'm trying to help more kids attend college, because college today is just crazy expensive. In college, one of the jobs I did was bartender, and I pretty much paid for college myself by working. But that's, you know, at $80,000 each and every year, I don't know how many kids could bartend and make enough to pay for that. So yeah, we're here to talk about how to reduce your college costs. All right, so we're going to get to the worst slide of the whole thing, and the worst is, it's called the cost of attendance. And and you know, this is everything. Cost of attendance is room and board and tuition and actually travel and all sorts of things. And essentially all the costs, you start in September and end in July, and all those costs in the middle are cost of attendance. So Columbia, 80,000, Yale, Stanford, 78,000, Harvard, 75, you know, on down to, like, you know, a junior college like College of Marin, 3,000 a year. And so here's there's quite a cross section, you know, a state school, Cal Poly, one of the best bangs for the bucks for in-state Californians, is 30,000 a year. And so this is cost of attendance, and but that's the sticker price. That's not necessarily what you'll pay. That's the sticker price. I always encourage families, you know, until you really know your college costs, don't be too intimidated by the sticker price. And you'll see why in a couple minutes. All right. So here's the first question, lesson number one, and that is, you know, how many years does it take to get, to get a 4-year degree? And it's sort of a funny question. How many years does it take to get a 4-year? And actually, on average, across the United States of America, it's 5.5. And the reason why is because kids change their major. So lesson number one is try to pick the right major the first time. And that's quite a trick. But if you could, you know, graduate in 4 years versus 5.5, that's an extra 1.5 years of tuition, or cost of attendance, I should say, which is a lot more than tuition. And so finding the right major the first time is lesson number one. That could save you 1.5 years of college. And that's quite a trick. And so essentially there's lots of programs, you know, essentially one thing I say is to, you know, make your high school counselor your best friend, because they could save you over $100,000, you know, 80,000 times 1.5 years. That's like a little over $100,000. And another one is there's tests. Like we have a test at College Cash Solutions that's all online, and it takes the child, and I like to start this freshman year in high school, and you do it freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, keep doing it over and over again and iterating. And it helps you try to find the career. It's quite a trick where you do informational interviewing with all sorts of different careers, and you take these psychology tests online to help identify possible careers, and then you call up people and do informational interviews. It's a fantastic program. It was developed by applied psychologists at MIT, and so that's a great program to do. And I recommend almost every student to go through that process to try to find a career path, and then you back that into college. Because most kids, they pick a college first, then they try to shoehorn a major, and then they change majors, and then they go for 5.5 years on average. Whereas the kids that went through this MIT college selection process, they graduated in 4.2 years on average across the nation. And the 0.2 had to do with couldn't get the classes. All right. So that's lesson number 1, which is pick the right major and pick the right college the first time, and hopefully graduate in 4 years. All right. Lesson number 2, it's called, if you're on the West Coast, so unfortunately this doesn't apply to Chicago, but there's this on the West Coast, it's called Western Undergrad Exchange. So if you apply to a public school, but out of state on the West Coast, from West Coast to West Coast, you can go to this witchy-wooey, funny names, witchy.edu/wooey. They'll limit the amount of tuition they'll charge you for, out of state. And the most they'll charge you for out of state students is 150% of in-state tuition. And only thing is, on the admissions application, you have to say, hey, I want to be admitted to this school under the WUI rate. So be sure to put that on the application. So that's lesson number 2. All right, we're gonna be going fast. And so we'll go to lesson number 3, and that is, a lot of schools now are not taking the SAT or ACT, or they make it optional. It's like, hey, if you want to take it, and a lot of schools still require it, but a lot of them are saying, it's optional. But whether it's optional or not, every school will accept SAT and ACT scores. And the higher you score on an SAT or an ACT, the more free money you'll get. And you'll see the equation in a couple minutes of why that's true. So if you score, pretty high, especially per the averages for the schools you're applying to, if you score high on the SAT or the ACT, then you'll get more free money, more scholarships and grants, and less student loans and less work study, which is a job on campus. And so you want to do as well as you can on the SAT. So this is lesson number 3. So do as well on the SAT or the ACT. Now, all schools will take either one without prejudice towards one or the other. So what I say is figure out which one you're better at naturally, and then put all your effort into the ACT test or the SAT, whichever one your brain is a little bit more hardwired to. And there's tests, they're called comparison tests, and one you can find at captest.com, Kaplan, where you can take the SAT, ACT comparison test. And at the end of taking that test, it's online, and you'll figure out whether your brain's a little bit more ACT oriented or SAT. And then once you figure that out, put all your effort into one, but don't take both, because I call that cruel and unusual punishment. So don't take, it's unconstitutional. There you go. So and I have one of those tests too. So my company is called collegecashsolutions.com, and if you work with me, then what I do is I will give you one of those comparison tests and figure out whether your child's more of an ACT or SAT brain. And then if you do well enough, then we'll submit those scores to the colleges, and you'll get more free money. So that's lesson number 3 on how to reduce your college costs. All right, go to the next slide, and that's the government has allocated $181 billion. So if anybody out there paid any taxes, 181 billion of those taxes goes back to all these colleges. There's 3,700 different colleges in the United States of America, and so it gets pushed out to all those colleges, and they get scholarships and grants. And here's the equation. So it's COA minus EFC equals award. Lots of letters, but COA means cost of attendance. That was that first one where Columbia was 80,000, Stanford was 75 or so thousand, and that's for each year. Some parents say, is that for all 4 years? I'm like, yeah, unfortunately not. It's only for 1 year. And so cost of attendance, and then you subtract what's called your EFC, and your EFC stands for expected family contribution. It's what the government expects your family to contribute to college, and it's based on all sorts of crazy things. And it doesn't make any sense. The equation really is unintuitive, and that's where parents stumble, because when you fill out these forms, you use sound logic and common sense, and unfortunately, this whole process, I need to say, was created by the government. And of course, anything created by the government, in my opinion, a lot of times doesn't make common sense and use sound logic, and that's very true for this. But the way this EFC is calculated it's based on the parents' ages and income and your assets, but it doesn't matter how much assets you have. It just matters where they're at. So assets over here, hit the EFC really hard, and assets over here doesn't hit it at all. And some hit it, in the middle. And so essentially what you want to do is shift your assets that hit the equation really hard to where it hits the equation very little or not at all. And that's essentially the trick. So you fit your portfolio, your assets, whether it's real estate or your small business or stock or whatever, you want to shift it into ways that fit the financial aid formula well. And then once you do that, so if you make your EFC as small as possible, then your award will be as big as possible. All right. So that's what you're trying to do from a 30,000 foot point of view. And now let's figure out what that means. So we'll move on here. And so how do you apply? Well, there's this thing called the FAFSA, Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And that is a form you fill out online for free. And it will ask you all sorts of questions, again, like I just said, how old are the parents? How old is the student? Does the student have any assets to the parents? How much are those assets? How are they structured? And by answering those questions, you'll get a number. And that's what the FAFSA was all about. And then that's your EFC number, expected family contribution. And then there's another form called the CSS profile. And that's mainly for private schools, but not every private school. There's some private schools that will just require you to fill out the FAFSA. Every school wants the FAFSA. And then a lot of private schools will want the CSS profile too. And it asks the same questions as the FAFSA and a few extra. And you have to be consistent how you answer all those questions. But the biggest thing is the bottom one here is don't use common sense. You have to know the rules. And we'll be getting into some of the non-commonsensical issues. And then of how to answer well the CSS profile and the FAFSA. Because you have two families, and one knows what they're looking for and have shifted their assets in the right spots, and the other ones just answer it like you're just typical Joe American. You'll probably get nothing. And because it's the way the system is set up, it doesn't make any sense, if you ask me. And you'll see that in a second. So the question is how do you lower your EFC? And so, there's hundreds of ways to do it. It depends on your specific profile. And essentially what I'm going to do is at the end of this, I'm going to invite you to meet with me online. And since you're attending this, I'm going to waive any fees to meet with me. And what I'll do is I'll look at your situation and say, okay, if you answer the question straight up as as you're presented right now, here's what your EFC will be. And then if we do this, this, and this, your EFC will be down there. And then you can figure out if that's right for you. But anyways, ways to lower it. The first one is called the National Index Multiplier. And this has to do with real estate. So one of the questions on the CSS profile is, do you own a home and how much is it worth? And that's the trick question. So there's only two ways to answer how much is it worth. The first way is fair market value. And, so you go to Zillow or some real estate program and it will tell you the fair market value. And that's what most parents will do. Another way is to use this national index multiplier. And some people put the property tax evaluation, that will get denied. And they'll just go online to Zillow and put in the fair market value. But if you use the national index multiplier, then that, in many cases, not all, but many cases, will evaluate your home much cheaper than what it really is in reality. And then your EFC will be lower because your home is worth less. Hold on a second, I'm just reading a note. Yeah, and so somebody asked about the SAT, ACT, and it said if the school is test optional and says they no longer require test scores, you can still submit your scores. And I say it depends on what your scores are per that school's averages, and then I would coach you on whether to submit them or not. So yeah, there's a little bit of strategy there, and it depends on the school and it depends on your scores at that school. Yeah, so there you go. All right. So the national index multiplier will reduce, whether it's rental real estate or your own home, could reduce your home value, and that's a legal way. There's only two methods that they accept. Another one is placing rental real estate in a special type, not just a generic LLC, but it's a special purpose LLC. And if you do that, your rental real estate can be exempt. And so, let's just say you have $2 million of rental real estate. Well, if you put that on the FAFSA and the CSS profile, they'll look at it and say, okay, sell the $2 million of real estate, take that cash and send it to the college, or at least, send $80,000 a year from that rental real estate proceeds. But you can shield your rental real estate in the appropriate way if you put it in a special purpose LLC, and then it's worth zero according to the FAFSA and the CSS profile. So that's a really cool thing to do. 529 plans, this might be shocking, but they work against you in the financially on the FAFSA and the CSS profile. And so I don't like 529 plans because they work against you. There's better ways to save money for college where the money doesn't work against you. Yeah, there you go. And you'll see what that is in a moment, for example. And so a lot of times I'll look at a 529 and I might unwind it and take the penalty if it lowers your EFC enough to more than compensate for the penalty that you would pay. And so there it is. So 529 is actually for saving for college. I don't think they're the best vehicle, mainly because they work against you in the financial aid formulas. All right, and usually they give positive returns, but that's another issue. All right, transfer money from kids' names. Here's one that doesn't make any sense at all. If a kid works hard, works at McDonald's or babysits or whatever, and saves money for college, that amount of money that's in the student's name hits the EFC formula 400% harder than if that same amount of money was in the parent's name. So by simply shifting kids' money to the parent's name and out of the kid's name, or I should say the student's name, will lower your EFC. And so why does Congress penalize kids for saving for college? I don't know, but they do. And once you know that unintuitive rule, then you can adjust your assets to fit the equations much better. And here's one: income shift from parents to the student, fund a Roth. So I call this my name's Gary. I call this the Gary 529 because I don't like 529 plans. But here's a plan I do like, and that is you hire your kid because you can only fund a Roth with money you earn, and so you hire your student and you fund a Roth. That money goes in tax-free, it goes in after tax, but typically students have a 0% tax bracket. So it goes in tax-free, it grows tax-free, and then you can take it out tax-free for college. And so now you've totally circumvented the IRS, which is amazing. There's a way to do it. And for saving for college, costs. So that's a great way of doing it. Exempt your small business. There's ways to structure your business and to file with the FAFSA and the CSS profile where your business is exempt. So a lot of people, what they'll do is, it'll say on the FAFSA and the CSS profile, it'll say, how much is your business worth? And you'll go to your CPA and ask them, hey, what's the valuation of my business? And they'll say something, $100,000, $500,000, $1 million, who knows? And if you write that down, a lot of times that blows you out of the water and you'll get nothing. But in many cases, you can exempt your small business. And so you can legitimately, per the Department of Education codes, you can put down 0. And and then your EFC will be lower. And there's just many other strategies. These are just a few, but these are some of the big ones that will lower your EFC and give you a bigger award. So more scholarships and grants. All right, we'll move on to the next slide. And so, so there's the FAFSA I spoke about. And then also, let's see, we'll go to the next one. What's the first date that you can apply? And that's October 1st of your student's senior year. That's the first day you can fill out the FAFSA and or the CSS profile. And then you want to be, early in line, but early in line could be roughly, the month of October. If you get it done October 31st or October 1st or anywhere in between, you're in the first group and you're early. But you don't want to wait until January or February now. And let's see. So I have a question here. What is the trigger point value of savings to transfer a student account to the parent. What is the trigger point value of savings? Yeah, like if a student has like $500 in their name, that's fine. But anything, when you start to get to $800 or 1,000 or more, that's when I want to start transferring money to the parents. Yeah. So if it's, I would leave the kid $500, but no more. Yeah, that's my recommendation. Yeah, and yeah, there you go. All right, let's move on. And yeah, this is just saying, apply early. So if you apply anytime in like October or even in early November, you'll be in the first group. Okay, and yeah, and about the FAFSA and CSS profile, the only thing I got to say is, be consistent with the FAFSA. The answers you put on the FAFSA and CSS profile. Be consistent with those answers, because that can get confusing to a financial aid officer if you found both and they're a little bit different. And then I said using common sense is a mistake. Yeah. So like, evaluating your house at fair market value, that would be a mistake. And there's a lot of mistakes like that. All right, and here's a note from a financial aid officer from the New York Times I thought was interesting. It says, parents and students sometimes forget we work for the school, not for them, not for the parents and not for the students, which means they're nice people, financial aid officers, but they work for the school. And so if you do have a business that should be exempt from the financial aid formulas, but you write down it's worth $800,000 because that's what your CPA told you, then a lot of times they're not going to correct you, or I'd say almost every time they're not going to correct you because they work for the school. And so they're not, they're nice people, but they have their boss. And so, yeah, and so that's that good point. So here's the next point, and that is, what do I do? So essentially, I call this your circle of wealth, and my goal is to get your circle as big as possible. And I am a financial advisor, but most financial advisors are just focused in this blue area, which is investments. And so essentially, they look at your assets and namely your stocks, and balance it appropriately and pick the right stocks. And that's great. That's a service. And I do a little bit of that. But there's other big parts that affect your wealth growing over your lifetime. And another one is your lifestyle. And so let's just say you're making a couple $100,000 a year, but you're spending $300,000 a year. Well, you're overspending your budget, and so your circle of wealth gets smaller. And so that has a big impact on your overall wealth. And then the third one is where I really focus, that reddish area. And I call it, not great marketing, but I call it unknown and unnecessary wealth transfer. So that's where you're unknowingly and unnecessarily transferring wealth out of your pocket. And so like reducing your college costs is what? If you attend a school and you could have exempt your home and you did not have a 529, but you put that money into a student-funded Roth or whatever, and you shifted your assets and you hid your real estate and you shielded your business and made it exempt, then you're not unknowingly and unnecessarily transferring too much of your wealth, and so therefore you're getting a bunch of scholarships and grants from the schools. Whereas if you didn't do those things, didn't know about them, then you are unnecessarily and unknowingly transferring wealth out of your pocket. And so that's pardon me, that's just these are financial processes. So I'm not giving you a better rate of return on your portfolio. What I'm doing is just keeping more money in your pocket. And so, for example, other ones are mortgage processes, or maybe converting an IRA to a Roth and minimizing or eliminating the conversion tax. There's processes that do that. And so I focus on those things, or eliminating your capital gains when selling like a property or things. These are financial processes that I do. And so that's what I do, is I focus on that red area. And that makes me sort of unique. All right. And so, but we're talking about college cost reduction processes. And so if you remember that equation, EFC, or cost of attendance minus expected family contribution, equals award. That award will be consisted of two things: gift aid and self-help. And gift aid is free money, scholarships and grants, and so you want a lot of that. And then self-help is student loans and work study, a job on campus work study. And I say you want almost all gift aid and very little self-help. And then another thing is award met. So award met is that equation, college cost of attendance minus EFC equals award. Well, all schools won't give you 100% of that number. Some schools will give you 80% or 50%, or actually some schools will give you 0%. And so I say is you want to know which schools give a high percentage of award met and a high percentage of gift aid. And, and I would say those are the schools I want to apply to. And so know before you apply what those percentages are, and which schools are generous and which schools are not, because even though you might be well deserving of a large award and a large basket of scholarships and grants, some schools won't give it to you. And it's good to know that, I'd say even before you apply. And so where do you find this information? Well, you could look at Princeton Review or Big Future or College Board. They'll tell you, or me. And clients that work for me, I give them a report. Here's the schools that are generous and how much you should get based on your EFC, and then which schools are not generous and how little you'll get based on your EFC. And so good information to know, I'd say, even before you apply. All right. And so here's an example of that. We have school A, the expensive school, and school B, the less expensive school. So school A is $50,000 a year and school B is only 30. Yay. And your EFC is 10,000, and that 10,000 would be at every school. And so EFC, so the cost of attendance minus your EFC equals your reward. So at school A, you're going to get $40,000, or your award should be 40. Then school B, 30 minus 10 is 20. There you go. So your award should be 20. So the question is which school is more expensive or less expensive to the parent? And based on this, the answer is I don't know. But if you say, well, school A meets 100% of the award, where school B only meets 60%, now I can answer the question, which school is more expensive or less expensive to the parent? And what you actually pay is at school A, since they meet 100% of the award, the parent will pay $10,000 a year to go to the $50,000 a year of school. That's great. They'll pay their EFC. At school B, since they only meet 60% of the award, and I can tell you which schools, will meet 60% or more. But anyways, they'll meet 60%. So instead of giving you an award of 20,000, they'll give you an award of 12,000. So they'll short you, quote unquote, $8,000 according to Washington, D.C. of what they say you should get. So at school B, you'll pay $10,000 for the EFC plus $8,000 of the unmet award, and you'll pay $18,000 out of pocket. So the cheaper school is, $18,000 versus the expensive school is only $10,000. So that's why I say, you look at sticker price, but that might not be what you will pay. And yeah, there you go. And there's sort of a visceral example, a little case study. All right, let's see. And according to the Department of Education, there's 3 types of families. There's the lower income and assets, middle class, and super wealthy. And the lower income and assets, maybe you rent a home and you don't have that much, in savings or checking or something like that. Then with these people, you just fill out the forms and you'll do well. But the middle class, that's where I really am trying to help, because they're the ones that get squeezed in the middle. I'll jump to the super wealthy. The super wealthy, yeah, they could sort of just out of petty cash, write an $80,000 check, no big deal. But in that case of the super wealthy, what I do for them is I use advanced tax strategies. Like maybe I'll use their own company to fund college through the company, so it's tax advantaged, and they'll pay pre-tax dollars to pay for college. So that's always cool. But it's the middle class that gets crushed, because it's, you can't quite write an $80,000 out of petty cash, because maybe you own a home or you have 529s or UTMAs, Uniform Transferred Minors Act, those types of accounts. These all work against you. Rental properties, grandparents help out, and that's a killer. If the grandparents write a check and send it to the college, that will work against the student. So, there's all these crazy rules. And so there's ways to get grandparents to help out that does not hurt you, but you have to use a certain process. And those are the things I show, my clients. And especially if you're middle class, you need my help. Yeah, because if you use common sense, you will not get any scholarships or grants. You have to do these non-commonsensical things. Yeah, which is sort of funny to say, but then you'll get the money. All right. Let's see. I think there was a question on the chat. Oh, maybe not. Okay. All right. So when to start planning? And the answer is sooner the better. If your kid is not even born yet, but let's just say you're pregnant, that's a great time to see me. Or when your kid's in grade school or even high school. And all I say is, the sooner you meet me, the better, because there, later on, if I have to unwind a 529, there could be penalties or, different things. Yeah. All right. So here's the big finish. One, know which colleges provide the most aid before applying. Yeah, which colleges are generous and which colleges are not. There's lots of money, billions of dollars available for this program, so just know that. And consider witchy-wooey schools if you're attending out of state to a public school. And choose the right major. So your high school counselor can put hundreds of thousands of dollars in your pocket. When filling out the FAFSA or the CSS profile forms for, to figure out your EFC to get aid, be sure to fill them out right, and then do not use common sense. And that's where everybody stumbles, because they use common sense and sound logic, and that's a bad thing to do in this case. Financial aid is given out on a first come, first served basis. And so, get it done like October to mid-November, definitely before Thanksgiving. And just like buying a car, you can negotiate. If the colleges don't meet their ratios, every college has ratios, you can negotiate, but you have to use their language and their ratios. So one thing I help people do is negotiate with the colleges if they haven't met the college's numbers, and I know what their numbers should be. And so, yeah, but if you just call them up and say, hi, I'd like more money, they laugh and hang up the phone. But if you use their ratios against them, they'll respond. Know that financial aid officers work for the schools and not for you. So, they're nice people, but they work for the school. And the education codes, it's complicated. It's crazy. I've been doing this for well over a decade, and every day I'm still learning more and more. And so just know how to configure your estate and submit your forms in your best interest. It's sort of like tax planning. If you plan to reduce your taxes, you'll do certain things. And then at the end of the year, you minimize your taxes to the IRS legally, but you minimize it. And same thing here. If you plan correctly and adjust your estate in the right way, then you still own the same amount of stuff, but you'll reduce your college costs. And just know there's a lot of financial tools available to you to reshape your college costs, and start planning now. Every day, month, or week you wait, it just makes it more difficult. So the sooner the better. All right. So what I'm going to offer you all that are attending this is a 1-hour exploratory meeting. At that meeting, I'll ask you a bunch of questions, and then at the end of the meeting, I'll say one of two things. I can help you reduce your college costs, or I cannot. And if I can't, I'll definitely let you know, because I don't want to waste your time, nor mine. And but if I can impact you and help you reduce your college costs, I'll definitely know that too. And most people I can. Once in a blue moon I can't, but most people I can. And here's my website, collegecashsolutions.com. And essentially, you go to that website, which looks like this, and you click on book a meeting, and you book an initial meeting at my website, collegecashsolutions.com. And let's see here. Yeah, and that's it. Finished. So my name is Gary Sipos. I'm a college cost reduction expert. And if you want to book a meeting with me to see if I can help you reduce your college costs, I would be glad to do so. All right. I hope you've learned something, and I look forward to helping you reduce your college costs.
And thank you, Gary, so much for your insight, educating our audience on ways they can give their child a 4-year college education without spending their life savings. And thanks to you, our audience, for joining us today. If you would like to learn how you can reduce your college costs, again, go to collegecashsolutions.com and book your introductory meeting. Have a great day.